Hey everybody, welcome back to BSE 308. John Shutsky here, and I have with me here today Megan Costello. Megan is a senior content strategist with the Mortgage Research Institute here kind of on campus, but kind of not. I'm thinking, Megan, you may talk a little bit more about your background. I actually got to know Megan when she worked here at UW-Madison in Letters and Science, and she was part of the UW, I think it's called UW Social Group. And this was a group of people who were responsible for largely developing like social media strategies for UW-Madison and sharing information. And then it was a couple of years after that, I was thinking about leaving my administrative role. And I contacted Megan, I want to say this was like 2013 or 2014, because I knew she'd begun editing resumes and cover letters. And I was interested in some job in a place like California. So Megan did a wonderful job, has a great degree of background in kind of bringing all of this stuff together. The things Don Stanley has talked about, our resume lecture, cover letters. And I think she's going to do a great job today. She's been a popular speaker with 308 in the past. With that, I'll turn things over. Welcome, Megan, to BSE 308, which is Career Management for Engineers.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan, as John introduced me. I'll say just a little bit about me, but first I just kind of want to address what we're talking about today and why and what personal brand is. And I think the big takeaway here is the content that you're receiving in this class, which first of all, this class is awesome. Had a class like this existed when I was an undergraduate here at the university, I 100% would have taken it. They exist a lot more, so that's awesome for you guys. But we're going to be talking about how, when you're out on the job market, and even in the market for graduate school, if you're pursuing that after graduation, or just kind of whatever comes next, how do you talk about yourself? Why does it matter how you talk about yourself? How do you pull that all together from your resume, your cover letter, LinkedIn, to the interview itself, to even just that chance meeting of someone who may be in a position to network with you, maybe as an alum of the university or somehow connected, and how you really introduce and pull yourself kind of together from everything in your education, extracurriculars, into the working world. So, what matters most? How do you answer this question? And really, at the end, we're going to talk about, I hope, just the one key takeaway for you, which is that when someone kind of asks you, so what do you want to do here, whether it's at a workplace interview or not, or just someone asks you what you're going to do after graduation, you can pull it together in a concise and really snappy way. So that'll be one of the kind of key takeaways. We're going to talk about a lot more than just that, but you will have kind of a key takeaway at the end here. So let me just say a little bit about myself here. Hi, I'm Megan. As John mentioned, I work at the Mortgage Institute for Research, so I'm just down the street. Well, I'm on campus. Well, I was on campus. I'm currently not now. Hello, welcome to my house, which is also my office now forever. But I work in the Discovery Building. Previously, I spent 6.5 years in the College of Letters and Science as an assistant dean for communications, running a small team of marketing communication folks. Along the way, I realized as a writer, I went to UW-Madison for undergraduate in journalism and English creative writing. And I did a graduate program in library and information studies that along the way, I was really good at writing and reading. I mean, it became my career, but I found myself having friends, colleagues, coworkers, family members ask me to help look at their resumes because, as you guys probably know, especially if you're in internships or you've experienced summer job situations, you got to have a resume. And people were asking for my help. And I found that one, I was really good at helping them write the content and edit the content. And two, that I was really interested in the field of career development, which is basically, how do we prepare students for careers? What does that look like? Do they go on to advanced careers? How do we train and prepare undergraduates and graduate students for the working world? So I got really interested in that. And along the way, I formed a small LLC where I do resume writing. It has been largely on hold, though, because in the past almost 2 years, I had a kid, and it turns out having a kid and working is super tough, speaking of career transitions. So I don't do it as much, but it is something that I truly love. And along the way, I ended up volunteering at the university as an alumni mentor in a class kind of similar to this in the College of Letters and Science, helping liberal arts students really define what skills they have. What does that expertise look like? How do you write a resume? Why should you have LinkedIn? Kind of all these questions that it sounds like you guys are delving into. So let's just kind of, for a second, step away from me. You don't need to hear any more about me. I'm here. So you right now, you've maybe applied to a job, summer job. Maybe it's a job that has nothing to do with what you're going to do after graduation. That's fine. Maybe you applied to internships. I'm sure both of these things have wildly changed since perhaps you started at the university because of the pandemic, and certainly they're changing because of that. Maybe you've attended a career fair or a virtual career fair. Wow, I would love to talk to students about how the virtual career fairs are going. I bet they're also a little wild. Maybe you've met with an advisor. Maybe you still need to find an advisor. Maybe you're not sure where your advisor is. Hopefully you've visited a career service office. I know that that's a little hard given what's happening with the pandemic on campus. At the very least, I hope you've explored the career services websites at the university, whether they're here in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences or in the College of Engineering or anywhere on campus. They're often really good repositories for information, templates for resumes, things like that, things you should absolutely be checking out as a student. I look at it even as like a working adult, 13 years out of graduation or whatever. It sounds like you guys are working on resumes or have certainly had some resumes in process. We'll talk a little bit about that. That is something I do quite a bit about in my side work. You've maybe written a cover letter. Maybe you've been told you don't need a cover letter. Both those things might be true. Perhaps you've created a LinkedIn profile. I would highly suggest you do that. You should definitely connect with me also on LinkedIn. Feel free to do that after this class. And maybe you've talked to some alumni about the job market. Maybe you've talked with professors like John. Maybe you've talked with other teachers or friends about what it looks like for the job market. I hope that at some point you've kind of dealt with one or perhaps more of these things. Why does this matter? Well, other than you're experiencing as a student. Your personal brand isn't all of these. These are all career tactics. This is all helping prepare you for what's going to come next, whether that's job, industry, graduate school, taking a break, whatever it is. Your personal brand is reflected in all of these areas.
Megan, I'll just let you know that
I don't.
of those 8, so the students will have to do a LinkedIn profile or at least an upgrade or it's a social media makeover is what I'm calling it. Resume, yes, all of the things. The other thing that happens with these, whether it's you or other speakers, people say, well, I've already got like the sweetest job in the world. You know, John, it's spring semester and come July, I'm going to be making 70 grand a year and I'm working for company X or agency Y. And I would just say this stuff still applies. If you got the sweetest job in the world, I feel like I do in my job, but I'm always keeping my resume up to date. I'm keeping my LinkedIn, something that should be a lifelong part of what you do.
Absolutely. I can't even, I mean, speak of the devil. So a fellow graduate friend of mine from college. So I'm 35. So like there's your reference point for how long I've been out of college. Friend of mine who pretty shortly after college got an amazing opportunity to basically open a brand new distillery on the like Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, has been with this organization. She's basically the CFO and the COO of this organization. She's been there since graduation, from the building, like literally building this distillery to launching it to doing everything that's part of like a major craft distilling company. She is in the process of leaving her position and she called me. She's like, yo, I haven't done a resume since we graduated school. And I was like, whoa, that's wild. We need to talk, because she had found herself in this situation where, you know, you're in a job for 12 years, you don't really get around to it. So to your point, absolutely. And I literally just had a conversation with a good friend of mine about this yesterday. So, and I'm excited for her to move on to her next adventure. All right, brands, I don't need to tell everyone this, but I'm citing some of this content and material from the class similar to this over in the College of Letters and Science. But I think all of us recognize the power of brands. This slide's pretty old, so you can obviously see where some of these iconography has been updated. But it's clear to, I think, all of us that these brands are out there trying to grab our attention. I think there's something we could learn from this. You know, there's probably some things we think we shouldn't learn from these brands. Fair. But my point is this, is that brand is always out there vying for our attention. It's trying to get into our email or text, our social. It's in our feeds, constantly vying for attention and recognition. And so I want you to think about yourself in a similar way. When you go into the job market, or you're applying to graduate school, or you're just taking time off to study for the MCAT, whatever you're doing, you're up against all these other brands. So you might be a McDonald's, which is delicious, but McDonald's is also up against Amazon. And so how do you distinguish yourself? What is your unique selling proposition, as we might say in marketing? And so that's why we're going to talk today about personal brand. How do you cut through the clutter and make sure that you are well understood in and really you are able to communicate your value to a future employer, school, whatever it may be as your next step. There's a great article, you can go check it out. But in 1997 in the magazine, I think it's still around, called Fast Company, it was said, "We are the CEOs of our own companies, Me Inc. To be in business today, our most important job is to be head marketer for the brand called you." I think everyone knows this now because in the age of social, like highly decentralized social media, I think everyone understands like, hey, if you have a TikTok presence, like your people know you. But let me tell you, I did grow up in the 90s. This is kind of a new idea in the 90s. So I just wanted to kind of provide this for some scope and understanding on like, where does this idea of brands being powerful and being important come from? And it's certainly not a new age thing. And it's certainly not just as, you know, young as the 90s. It goes back way beyond that. But this is kind of where the idea of personal branding really peaks. Some of you may know the oatmeal, speaking of internet things. So what we're really going to focus on today is this kind of open-ended question you might have even gotten, I don't know, in like pre-pandemic times. I would tell students, especially first semester freshmen, even sophomores, you go home potentially for that Thanksgiving break and you see your family members and like one of your uncles kind of says, you're like, ugh. This certainly happened to me as a liberal arts, major. For a while, I was just majoring in creative writing and everyone was like, good luck with that one. But they'd say, what are you going to do with that? Tell me about yourself. What are you even learning in comparative literature 2010? And what you don't want to do is exactly what's displayed here. Oh, open-ended question, huh? Sounds like asking me to slow dance the sound of wolves mauling a reindeer. Point is this, you need to be prepped to answer that question. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What are you looking to do here? What's your next step? These are often softball questions, and I can tell you after the years I've spent on hiring committees at the university and here at the Mortgage Institute, largely in academia, but when you're on these hiring committees, this is what often the first softball question I throw at anyone, from an intern to a C-level candidate. Why do you want this job? And I have seen so many people, arguably too many people, bomb this question. And it's a warm-up question. And this is the chance for you to take the personal brand, take all of these things you've learned in your career tactics, and just knock it out of the park. And so today, we're going to be really talking about how to answer this question, and questions really similar like that, kind of warm-up questions about what you're looking to do with your next steps. So don't be like this in the oatmeal.
This is especially important in biological systems engineering and engineering more generally. You hear mechanical engineers who go home for that first Christmas after their freshman year. So what are you going to do? Mechanical engineer, or are you going to operate a train? Like people so in biological systems engineering is even more, people just don't know what that means. So this is a hugely important question.
And it is, engineers are not alone in this. I mean, I can't tell you how often, this is such an issue in the liberal arts because the value of the liberal arts is questioned a lot today. Even though I would argue information, being able to make ethical decision making, writing and reading are very important skills. But it's really hard to answer that question. And so, I work now a lot more with engineers, and of course, me being like a ding dong person who came out of like English and journalism, I kind of assumed all engineers were the same. Whew, that's been a learning curve for me. Like, oh, medical engineers are not like industrial engineers. Interesting. And they approach problems from a very different way. But yes, so this is a really good practice round to kind of get you prepped to answer this question. All right, why does this matter? A lot of this stuff needs a lot of updating because what is happening with the pandemic has changed a lot about hiring in this country. And I don't need to tell anyone that right now the market is tough. Jobs are not recovering. You can all know this. You can all read this and see this in the news. Granted, some sectors are obviously impacted by others, but kind of before the pandemic, when I last gave this lecture in 2019, it was pretty true that organizations, generally speaking, no longer hire employees for life. So this was something my dad, who's a Gen Xer, would kind of experience, right? You might get a job at GE. You might get a job at GE now and stay at GE for a while, but this idea that you had a linear career. So maybe if I was going to be a journalist, I'd start as a Scott reporter and work my way up to an editor, and I'd be at the company for 20 years. That certainly changed. I graduated about a year and a half before the Great Recession, which like basically shattered this idea, which was already largely falling apart. That it wasn't unnormal or abnormal that people would have multiple different jobs and careers and would quite honestly do something that looked like job hopping as a result of both just the recession that occurred during my time, but also just because the nature of work has changed so much, um, which is kind of the second point. There are new positions, contract positions are very different now. Service is obviously very different than it was years ago. Um, and just how hiring happens is so wildly different. So there's an argument made by Peters and Fast Company that you've really got to be an embedded entrepreneur. So how do you really show your value, demonstrate that unique selling proposition when you're going out and thinking about the world of work? There's a lot more I could say about what has happened to hiring and the entire sector of jobs, but I'll leave that to the experts. Just let me just say one thing about personal branding, because I think all of us kind of know like brands are icky and liars and other things I could say. Personal branding is not exaggerating your experience. So we're not saying more than what is real and exists. We're not lying. We're not a football coach lying about where we went to college or whatever current scandal is happening. And it's not getting your name out there in any way possible. There's an argument to be made that there's some tactics that you could do for that, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about where your personal brand lives and all these things that we kind of started off the lecture. So how do you talk about yourself, your career, your experience, those summer jobs that you had, your internships? It's in all these places. And you better bet, as someone who's hired students, recent career graduates, recent graduates from the university, mid-career people like myself, you better bet your butt that I'm looking at the internet and finding out where you are. Are you on Instagram? Is it open? What's your Twitter look like? Does your LinkedIn match your resume that you sent in? Do you have a personal website, a portfolio? I'm looking at all these things. Well, one, to see like, what do you like? But also two, how does this really sync and reflect back on who you are as a candidate, whether that's from your resume or cover letter or any other materials that might be supplied. So what I'm saying here, other than don't be a dummy on the internet, which I hope I don't have to say, but I feel like I do just because I have to say it, is think about the consistency and the look and the feel and the language and all these things. So, does your resume look like a condensed, tighter version of LinkedIn? I hope so. Does your Facebook profile, if it's open, does the picture look anything like the LinkedIn profile? Is there a disconnect there? What's this all look like? These are all things that I think are really important because they're the tactics. They're the way that your brand is displayed. Let's do a little bit more on hiring here. So probably not rocket science. Hiring is highly subjective. Whether you come in through a round of testing, personality, character testing, literal testing, in the end, there are people making decisions about whether you're a good fit for a company, a team, a role, whether you have the experience and things like that. I think it's really important to know that just off the bat. That's not a good or bad judgment statement, by the way. It's just what it is. This is often true at the university, so take this with a little grain of salt, but hiring is often done by managers with no experience or training in interviewing and hiring. So you might be brought in through an HR process where people are, we would hope, highly trained. But in the end, you might be meeting with your future boss or co-working team who might have interviewed a few people ever, but maybe haven't gotten the chance. And so I think it's just important to balance when you're going through this process that you might be talking with people who are highly experienced in these areas and often some who are not. And my experience as a manager is that there's often little to no training on this. I hope some companies are doing better on this, but I think it's just important let's just set the bar low just so we're all in the clear understanding of it. Not only that, expectations of hiring and what is considered best in breed or best of in hiring varies widely across occupations, industries, or organizations. I often get students ask me, do I need a cover letter? And my response is, did they ask for one? Because some companies are just like, nah, we don't want that. Um, in some places, a portfolio is really critical. I'm a writer, so I have to show my writing when I'm doing that. A friend of mine is an artist, pretty important in the world of art, photography the same way. Coders have a very different um, resume style. They have a lot different way of showing their work in terms of their development experience. A friend of mine who's been in business consulting for years, cover letters just not a thing in his deal. Like it just doesn't exist. He's almost never had to write one. It's just not accepted in his industry. So just know that. I think it's really important just to underscore that it's not always black and white. I do think a pretty black and white one though is resume. Resume is almost always required. Sometimes you have to actually put it into a system called an applicant tracking system, but often a document that shows your work experience, whether you provide it or you put it into a system, is required in most jobs and positions. And to what I said at the beginning, it's crazy because like I update these slides once a year, and I already feel like I have to redo almost all these slides because of the pandemic. And I'm very interested to see how hiring practices and norms are keeping changing. I myself have had a pretty flexible career. I'm a writer, so a lot of times it's nice for me to be able to work from home so I can just kind of bang out some of the writing I need to do. But I never could have told you in the future that we would be doing almost all hiring and onboarding, offboarding of people all online because of a global pandemic. Like, what? It's crazy. So I think that alone is really important to remember. And certainly you guys are living that, so you know that.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Megan, if I could just interrupt for a moment, I
absolutely.
think, so I hope that I can use this video in 2021, and you might be a student in 2022 watching this. And I think what's really important is this pandemic thing for all of us, including Megan and I, and we're sort of like different generational groups, but there's a lot of this, like we don't know. It's going to be unfolding, and you need to keep on top of things as a student, and then hopefully as a professional, because some of you are going to be out in the workplace in the summer of 2021 or 2022. So you really do have to keep on top of this stuff. The other thing, and I just want to like sort of draw attention back to everything and putting this with your material and also with Don Stanley, the thing that we will know about it being a disruptor event, and with digital and Zoom and WebEx and distance, companies are now saying like, whoa, our marketplace isn't just the Madison area and the suburbs of Madison and Milwaukee or Chicago. Like now we've got, wow, we could pick from anybody who's the best candidate in the world in some cases. And that's just kind of like a really big part of this disruption that you're going to have to pay attention to. You agree with that, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I've had two friends in the pandemic, not the friend I'm talking about who had the distillery, but I've had two other friends who have left jobs and have been hired by completely remote workforces that were already remote pre-pandemic. But I would say we're heading more in that direction. A company like Salesforce has like a huge online workforce that works all over the country. I mean, I'm sure there's like 10,000 people who work in the San Francisco office, but some of these big tech companies were already doing that. But I think what we're seeing now is many, many other companies doing that out of necessity. I think for the students, what I would say is that really ups the ante, because now instead of being against a local hiring pool or whatever, you're up against a lot of other people. And I don't say that to sound doom and gloom, but what I mean to say is like, you got to get your stuff together, and like, you got to be tight and like ready to go on this, because that mixed with the downturn in some markets, or perhaps a new supply of people being on the market, both of those things, you're up against more competition. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I really feel we made one of my colleagues left at the Mortgage Institute early last spring, and we made a hire right as the pandemic started, and it's been great having this team member who I've literally only seen like 3 days before the shutdown, but her entire onboarding, so like the process of coming into a new company, has been online, and that was really tough. Which I also just kind of want to underscore. We're talking about hiring, but just the entire nature of work. And I think those students who've had internships or summer jobs where you kind of walked in and you're like, what is going on? That process, I find as a mid-career professional, it takes like 6 years, really 1 year, excuse me, 6 months, really 1 year to figure out a workplace, in my experience, just to kind of get the bearings on like, all right, who does what exactly is my job? Where am I being successful? How am I making a difference? That process I often find takes a year. certainly 6 months. I imagine that is much more difficult and just incredibly different now being online, which I think is a challenge. I also think students who are young and are real good at this technology and are good at collaborating online, you guys have a leg up in that. But I think acknowledging that this is all different is really, really important.
And I was going to say,
And
like,
that if you,
it is scary and you've got to be good at branding yourself and doing all this stuff. But it's also like, whoa, like, oh, a job in Paris, France. I could work for that company and work from home and maybe go to Paris once or twice a year. That would be super cool. But I mean, it also just opens up things for you as well as a student.
absolutely. And I think that is, it'll be very interesting to see how the next few years go, because I do think that we're already obviously in a shift that I think will keep percolating for remote work. So it'll be interesting to see. So again, this slide, hey, it's already out of date. What do you know? Okay, so let's go back to that question, right? You go home, winter break, after Thanksgiving, whatever. Someone says, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Or maybe you're at a networking event. We used to do these events on campus called networking events. Maybe you've done some of them remotely or digital with alums. They say like, oh, Megan, you're majoring in English creative writing. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I'm going to give you a formula. All the stuff's online. I have links that I'll send to John. Steal this from the internet. There's a really easy way to answer this question and not suck. And it is called the present, past, future formula. And it's basically a way to say 3 sentences that answers this question and really cuts above the rest. It gets to like what we would call in journalism the nut graph. So what is the most important key takeaway? What is the high level succinct information I need to know about a story? It's called the nut graph. The present, past, future formula is that for you. Okay, so what is that? Like I said, it's basically 3 sentences. Your first sentence, you're going to start with present. Where are you right now? What are you doing? Are you a sophomore in school? Do you have your major declared? Do you have an internship lined up? What's going on? You're going to segue into the past. So where did you come before that? Did you have a job last summer? Did you have a job last fall? What were you doing on campus last fall? What specifically, what skills did you gain in that previous position? And I get asked a lot from students like, okay, I'm majoring in BSE, but I worked at my dad's car wash. Can I talk about that? Yes, you could talk about that. And you should. Did you deal with customers? Did you have to deal with angry customers? Did you have to be organized? Did you deal with cash? These are all skills, even if it's your dad's car wash. And there's nothing against car washes because I desperately need one right now. And I think that they're very important. The third part of this, or the third sentence or kind of wrap up, is you're going to finish with the future. So what's next, right? What are you looking forward to? What are you going to do with that degree? Or what is your intention to do with that degree? What are you going to be focusing on the next year at school? Or what's the next kind of big internship for you? That's the present, past, future formula. Now we're going to walk through kind of how to break this down. I have some examples of some people who I think probably would have benefited from this formula. But let's just hold for a second, kind of go through it in a little bit more. So here's an example for you. Well, I'm currently an account executive at Smith, where I handle our, whoopsies, Costello. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead. Present. Well, I'm currently an account executive at Smith, where I handle our top performing client. So this individual is obviously working in sales. They've name dropped their current workplace. And they've kind of basically summed up in a very short amount of time what they're dealing with. So they deal with the big dog client. That's pretty important. That shows that you have a lot of skills with managing someone who's very important to the company, right? Managing an important relationship. What'd you do? Well, before that, I worked at an agency where I was on 3 different major national healthcare brands. So now they've kind of widened the scope. They've also dealt with healthcare. And while I really enjoyed the work that I did, I'd love the chance to dig in much deeper with one specific healthcare company, which is why I'm so excited about this opportunity with Metro Health Center. So this is just an example from a website that I'll talk about a little bit. But what I love about this and why the present, past, future formula works so well is that, one, it's real short. So you don't burn yourself out on some long-winded answer to this question. But it gives me kind of 3 really important things, right? Okay, I got a sense of where you came from. I don't need you to give me your whole freaking resume in this answer. I don't do that. Don't give me your long-winded, I have your resume. I don't need to know all 5 jobs. Just pick the one that's the most relevant. What are you doing now? What did you do before that? And what's really important, and what I'm always looking for on these hiring committees or when I'm helping people on resumes and cover letters is, why do you want the next opportunity? And this is where I have seen everyone across the board, students, recent grads, mid-career, not C-level as much because usually by that point these people are quite on. Why do you want to be there? And this involves a little bit of homework for whatever you're doing next, right? Whether it's grad school or you're going into your career or your first job. Why that place? So what I think is really good in this example is that they've obviously, the individual here has focused in that they really want to be at one healthcare company. Okay, good. But specifically, um, they're really interested in expanding that with Metro Health. So I'm always looking for someone who can kind of bring that in. I dealt with this a lot when I was in the College of Letters and Science, which is a huge, monolith, but also decentralized liberal arts college. And I'd ask people, and a lot of people didn't have a sense of the LNS brand, which arguably is a difficult brand, but they would say things about maybe they were really excited to work with students. And I was like, well, that's really important because we educate a lot of students. So I was always looking for that. What are you looking for here specifically? Did you do the homework? Did you read a job listing? Have you talked to someone at the company about an aspect of this job specifically or the company culture that is really calling to you deeply? So I'm always looking for that extra little bit of legwork. And I think that this is where, when you're out there applying to jobs or working on your graduate school essay or whatever you got to do the homework. Why do you want to go there? If you don't want to go there, maybe stop and have a conversation with yourself about that.
So
But it's really, go for it.
as an engineer in our department, it might be, hey, I'm really interested in the new automated robotic tractors your company is developing, or I'd love to work for NRCS because I know of your commitment and passion to protecting our water resources in the natural environment. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say this, most companies, I shouldn't even say most companies, a lot of times when you're looking at a job posting, there'll be some like mission driven statement somewhere on it. It'll be something like about John Deere, and then it'll say something about like John Deere. And often there's some really important mission language in there that the HR people have put in. And I would encourage you to like go on their website and learn about that. Whether your job interfaces with that or not, probably important context information. I mean, ideally, you're bringing this future statement back to your point, John, exactly about what the individual wants to do at the company. But I find that that is really helpful. So I deal with this in my position here at the Morgridge Institute. We're a basic biomedical research institute. So we are not, creating vaccines right now in COVID-19, but we have a number of people working on early stage research related to COVID-19. And so when we bring someone in, it's really important that they understand basic biomedical research. And I want to say it's wild to me how many people haven't done the research.
Mhm.
They kind of think we have patience. I was like, whoa, we don't have patience. We're an early stage research institute. We're not on the end of like tech transfer and IP. We're really early here. We're basic. So I'm always looking for that too when we're hiring people. Like,
So do your homework.
do your homework, read, and I mean, more importantly, talk to people. We can talk about that too.
Mhm.
All right, that's present, past, future. I think my next slide is me taking a stab at this, which will be interesting because I probably should have updated it. So it's me. Hi, right? I'm currently a senior content strategist at the Morgridge Institute for Research, a nonprofit biomedical research institute. I create fundraising strategies using digital communications to engage prospective donors. Before that, I spent 6 years at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, managing a 3-person communications team for the largest college at the university. I'd love the chance to help MailChimp provide new tools for nonprofits. I love MailChimp. I use it a lot in my job. It's a lot of email marketing. MailChimp is kind of a, like a goofy millennial company. So it seems like they'd be cool to work for in this example. But what I think is important just in all this, and first of all, let me just say for the students who are like, sounds good, I don't have any experience managing a 3-person team, we're going to get there. So just don't even start chastising yourself for not having this experience. You won't. You're not 35, I don't think. So like, don't worry about it. But the point is this: is that it's really important to provide those specifics in there. So I tried to give some perspective on what the Morgridge Institute is. So I think it's really important for you as you're talking about where you came from or where you currently are. I don't think you probably have to talk too much about the University of Wisconsin. Most people probably know what University of Wisconsin is. But if you work for a student robotics group, you might have to explain that. What is it? What do you guys do? How many people are there? Do you have a role in leadership there? What do you do? And in addition, numbers. I hope I don't need to tell you guys this because you're engineers, but I find one of the things I often have to do for clients, but also friends, in kind of all forms of writing, but in specifically career writing, and career development writing, resumes specifically, people don't give me numbers. And what I mean is quantitative information. How long were you there? How many people did you work with? How often did you do something? What was the frequency? Um, Things like that. I'm always looking for numbers. So I think it was really important to me that I make sure I say I managed a 3-person team. Gives you some context how big my team is. I thought it was important that I mentioned that the college I worked for was the largest. I think it was important. I said I was there for 6 years. I'm younger, I'm mid-career, so it's important to me to say like, hey, I was there for 6 years. It was important during my time. And I mentioned quite a bit about fundraising, which I didn't mention at the top, but that's actually what I do day to day. Is I work on a lot of fundraising stuff. So don't need to tell you all the numbers are important in fundraising. But
Interesting that you mentioned robotics team, because we have a robotics team, and that is a place. I'm not just saying just the robotics team, but extracurriculars here at the university. That College of Engineering is full of them, and so it's a really great reason to get involved with some extracurriculars here in your as early as possible in your academic career. It
as
helps you
early,
with stuff.
yes. I mean, so when I came to UW in 2003, I think I was on my like 6th day in Chadbourne. We called it Nerdborn. I don't know if people still call it Nerdborn, but I think it's just because we did. And I was like, I'm gonna write. I want to be a writer. And I emailed the Badger Herald, and I was like, I want to be a writer, and I just did it. And it was one of the most important parts of my undergraduate career. It was at a time when an actual paper was being produced. It was kind of at the tail end of like the height of newspapers, but it was the most important, significant part of my college career. And to be frank, as much as I talked about my degree in journalism and English, I ultimately netted the most experience and skills from my time at the Badger Herald. So I can't understate how important it is for students to get involved in student groups. And I feel like I don't need to say this because every semester, when I go to work, I meet some of the students from BME or other programs that interface with the Mortgage Institute. And I'm like, good God, everyone's really smart and amazing. This is very good. And if you're not, you got time. Go do it. It's okay.
As an ag engineer at Purdue University, I was a staff writer for the Purdue Exponent.
Hey, I mean,
And do you know what beat I covered? Ag.
uh,
I
I
was
was going
the
to say,
ag guy. I was the go-to guy for agriculture. So it's a true
uh,
story.
I mean, writing is really important
Writing
too.
is super important.
I'm not just saying that because I'm a biased writer, but okay, so that's me, right? That's how I would do my present, past, future. And actually looking at it, probably wouldn't change anything. Seems pretty right still. I want to take a kind of a pause here and we're going to do something. It's obviously a lot more fun to do this in the actual lecture, but because there's a global pandemic, we're not doing that. I want to talk about 3 individuals who attempted to answer the question, why should I hire you? Or tell me a little bit more about yourself. I'm going to give a little bit of context. So I mentioned this earlier, but I graduated in 2007, and about a year and a half later, the stock market crashed, which, of course, at the time we've talked about incessantly, but now that's been almost completely overwhelmed by what we're experiencing currently. But let me just say, for some point of context, 2008 was a huge recession, and a lot of people lost their jobs, and it completely screwed up everything. And it was a nightmare. And maybe you guys remember this or you don't, but it was a really, really big deal. And for people my age who graduated, many were impacted in a way that they had lost income over years that would take decades to regain because of a result of the fallout of the economy, specifically in the financial sector. And so what happened was CNN and all these other cable news channels were doing these wild segments where they were having people come on and basically give their pitches to why they should be hired. Cable news is trash, but what I think is really helpful and why I keep doing this exercise is to just listen and see how people answer this question and think to yourself, how would I have done that? So that's one thing. How would you have done this? What's good? What's bad? What could be improved? And you're going to see 3 really different examples of how people answered this. The context, of course, being not just the recession, but that these people are on live cable television. You're probably not going to be in a position like this. The point is this: If you have your personal brand and your present, past, future formula statement ready to go, you can knock this out of the park, whether you're on a really dumb CNN show or you're just in that first interview after graduation, whether it's on Zoom or you're sitting in a room with someone. So I'm going to get this queued up and make sure it works. Uh, I gotta move a little bit ahead in it though, John, just because the actual pitch start. So like, I'm gonna just scrub here a little bit. It's the host basically talking about like, hey, I brought these three guys on. They're gonna give their pitch. So we're gonna hear from three individuals, each give their pitch for this segment. Let me just back up just a little bit. See if I got volume going on.
Thanks so much. Eddie, let's start with you. Tell me what the heck happened. Did you see it coming?
I got to move ahead a little bit. Miss Guzzo.
You're fine, Megan.
I think it starts at 1:30. All right. Let's see if we're good here.
Prepared it all financially? Did you feel the effects immediately?
No, I was prepared. I've tried to follow good fiscal discipline and follow the rule of having 6 months salary, 8 months salary.
We're going to go ahead. Sorry. I always forget if it's at 1:30 or 2:30. Sorry, John.
That's okay, Megan. We're good.
All right. We're going to hear from Eddie first. I think we go Eddie and then I can't remember the second guy's name and then Lyle. I remember Lyle. All right. Let's see. Let's try this again. Take 4.
30 seconds. Give us your pitch.
Well, I am extremely passionate about technology and learning, and I am very interested in using my years of experience in technology support and teaching, combined with my Northwestern education, to help manage an organization's technology project team, or an organization that has a learning and talent development department. I'd love to help them power up their employee engagement through the use of technologies such as social media and the Apple iPhone.
Look at that. Right on.
So normally in a class, we get to kind of have this conversation, but I think maybe I'll just point out a few things, if that's all right with you, John.
That's good.
So one of the things that is always a takeaway for me on Eddie is he just has this like natural, just like really warm, effervescent personality. So, and he obviously does real good on cable news of like communicating that, but he's got this like presence and demeanor that I think is just warm and inviting, which I think is great. Often people like that, that's just kind of who they are. So that's kind of, speaking of hiring being subjective, that's like a very subjective thing that I would take away from Eddie. I thought it was really interesting that he kind of offered 2 areas where he could be helpful on either the engagement side or on the technology side. Mm-hmm. He also mentioned, now again, this is 2008, so like, take this with a grain of salt, like social media and the Apple iPhone. But he's really specific in mentioning that as a technology area where he's both interested and would like to lend expertise. And the last thing is he name drops his university, which I encourage everyone to do, especially people who go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So, and I should say this, especially as a recent graduate, I think it's really important to not underscore that you went to a world-class public research university. So it is absolutely okay to mention, and I would encourage you to mention that in any context of your present or past, kind of depending on where that is in your present, past, future formula.
Can I add one little bit? I mean, you sort of mentioned
absolutely.
His warmth and his, I think you said effervescent. He's just like enthused, like he's excited. And in
yes.
2008, it was a scary time, but it's like, hey, he portrayed to me a sense like I'm super hopeful because we've got an exciting future moving ahead. And that just came across with him.
Yeah, and the other thing I really didn't mention is like all 3 of these guys lost their jobs. So like they're definitely feeling pretty bad about stuff. And so I think he's really able to give that a positive spin. And I would just say that is something that is important in hiring, to see that someone wants it, right? Because I'll be honest, a lot of times in hiring, you might have 3 candidates who are all great. And at the end of the day, the team start asking, who's going to have the best sort of personality fit with the team. But they also start you start asking yourself questions like, well, this person really wanted it. Like, is that the personality, the quality, the traits that we want here? It might be yes or no, but it becomes a factor in how you decide to to hire someone, but I also think it kind of shows someone's true personality. And I think in Eddie's case, that's probably true. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of other things. The other thing is he hit his time. He was like real on. So it was tight. So that's good. We're going to go to the next guy, if that's all right.
Sure.
Right on the money, and you're very good with time. All right, Richard Pachowski, take it away.
Hi, you're looking for someone who has more than just a focus on technology. You're looking for someone who has
That's okay. Go for it. Tell us. Just speak to me. Like we're sitting at the dinner table. Go ahead, Richard. What do you have? What can you offer?
that.
That's okay. Regroup for a second. No problem.
Okay.
Go ahead. Take it again.
Okay. You're looking for someone who is more than just technology savvy. Someone who has customer focus and international experience. A person who is a problem solver, analytical, yet still has common sense. I'm that person. I have great customer focus skills and great soft skills. I have the ability to take end-to-end ownership of a project and the determination to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Fantastic, Richard. All
Thank
right,
you,
Lyle.
and
Ouch.
But can
So-
I say
Yeah.
something about him though? And I think this is like a really critical life lesson for students. Like you get up in front of a group of people, you might be giving a speech, you might be at a job, and I'm guessing nobody's sitting there watching this with you and I talking. Nobody's like, oh gosh, what a jerk. You just like you have this empathy, and it's okay, just like she was coaching him, like get back on the horse and let's do it again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I was going to say is like he stuck to it and did it. So like perseverance, y'all, like you're going to have weird hiring things happen. Like you'll forget a question. I mean, it's happened to me, which is why I always recommend, speaking of like little life skills, write the question down when you get asked it, especially if you're being asked it like over Zoom, because it's so easy to just droll on and on video. It is also in person, you get spooked and you forget. So like write the question down so you don't forget it. And if you do forget it, just say, I'm sorry, I need to gather my thoughts and can I start again? I've had people ask that in interviews. It is absolutely okay. Because hiring can be overwhelming. And sometimes some companies, they like run you through the gauntlet because like that's how they do hiring. So you should absolutely take time to regroup, write down the question if you have the ability to, and just persevere through it. The other thing I would say is even with that, I feel awful for him, but he had it memorized. And so what I would say this, and what I would encourage everyone is practice these present, past, future formulas in the bathroom mirror, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're in the car. I would do this before any interview I've ever been in my life and my career. I would just start asking myself random questions. Tell me about a difficult time at work. What did you do and how did you overcome it? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why do you want this job? Tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult management situation. And I would kind of just keep practicing these things in my head so that when it came to it, I was able to answer the question. Because I just kind of always had these things in my back pocket I'd been practicing on, because practicing will help you come back to that. If you lose your train of thought, forget the question, get spooked, whatever, you can come back to it. One of the things I think is interesting about his approach, two things. He answers the question in the second person language. That's weird to me. I usually don't recommend that as a writer, but he did it. That's fine. You can make a decision on whether you think that's good for yourself. Usually we talk about ourselves in the first person, so I would encourage you to do that. He focuses a lot on soft skills, which I generally don't recommend. I say that with a caveat that it depends on the industry and the job and the area, but what I think is really important is to be specific in these skills. He talked about some of his customer service work, but I heard a lot more about soft skills in this. And I think for students, as you're out there on the job market and you start looking at job postings and descriptions, especially knowing that you guys are engineers, you're going to have a very probably a long list of very technical hard skills that you're going to need because of the nature of your work. And I would pay attention to those. And that's probably something where you're going to need to focus more time than on soft skills. Soft skills are important, teamwork and communication, but it varies. A company like Epic, for example, might care a lot more about soft skills in some of their jobs than in some of their hard skills and in other areas of jobs, for example. Anything else on Richard? Otherwise, I think I'm going to go to Lyle.
I also felt a little bit uncomfortable by him leading with, you want this, you want that. It's like, no, if you're going to do present, past, future, you want to start with talking about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, and it just felt a little awkward. Yeah, it's a little stilted too, because I think, ultimately, this is over cable news, so he's like trying to whatever, get through the TV, but normally you don't answer the question with you, especially if the question's about yourself. You're going to say your name or say I. So yeah, it's a little weird. I honestly think that might have been part of the hiccup who knows, but it seems like it was maybe part of the hiccup. All right, we're going to finish off with Lyle here.
Oh, it's okay. You don't have to thank us. We're going to move right on to Lyle Nasser. Go ahead, Lyle.
I'm Lyle Nasser. I'm a results-oriented professional with demonstrated experience in budgeting, capital planning, and corporate strategy. I have a BBA in business and an MPA from the CU School of Public Affairs. I'm looking for a position in healthcare, nonprofit, or a political campaign. If you need someone hardworking and a self-starter, I'm your guy.
There we go. Lyle Nasser.
Lyle. Very good and tight on the time again. He almost seemed to follow present, past, future exactly on the dot. In very concise sentences, he really kind of hit on his experience in capital planning and some kind of finance, large-scale operations work. He mentioned his degrees, again, from both of the institutions. Name of institution and degree area, which I think kind of bolsters his reputation, kind of sticks him in my head, right? And he's really specific about the industries he would like to go into. We could make an argument that maybe it's a little broad, but he says here's what I want to do. So I think for a 30-second pitch on CNN is probably pretty good, right?
He definitely did follow the formula, even more so than the first fellow. Yeah, I thought like healthcare and running a political campaign or whatever. But yeah, he's casting a broad net here for CNN, and I'm guessing if he was interviewing for John Deere, he would have it a little bit more focused. Or
yeah, and he doesn't have like, compared to Eddie, if we were interviewing these guys, he doesn't kind of have like Eddie's upbeat candor, but he certainly is consistent, clear, and able to communicate effectively, I would say. So those are certainly like soft skills that I kind of am grabbing from his quick 30-second pitch. So now, of course, the point is the point is not to show you these three guys to make fun of them in various ways. But the point is this: when I worked in the College of Letters and Science, at the end of the semester, our students in the class similar to this, they got up in front of class and did these pitches, and it was one of the most rewarding days of my time volunteering as an alumni mentor in this class, because students who I'd seen creating their first LinkedIn, creating their first resumes and cover letters, they got up and they were really able to sell me on their present, past, future formula. And I wanted to just hire every student right there for whatever these imaginary jobs were that the students were asking for. So I would really encourage the students here in this class to, give this a shot in your bathroom mirror. Ask your roommate if you're back on campus if you can do it. Better yet, record yourself and watch yourself. It's horrifying. But more importantly, it kind of shows you oh God, did I talk really quick there? Did I become confusing there? Is that word right? You kind of just start to hear yourself. So I would encourage the students kind of as they're going through this process to maybe try answering that question. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why should I hire you for this job? What do you want to do? And record yourself and kind of see what happens and comes out of it. Because I think it'll be a really reflective experience for you, and it'll help you kind of get ready. I'm going to go on to the next thing here. Try it yourself, as I said. Here's what I would start with first. Just write a 250. You don't have to use 250, but just write some things about yourself, right? Like, I'm a student in this group. I'm this year in school. I'm majoring in this. I've had an internship or summer job in X. I volunteer here, whatever. All the kind of things that would kind of be in your resume, but kind of try to write it into like a narrative structure, 250 words or less, right? Take that after you've kind of done that brain dump. Try doing your, I just did it wrong there, present, past, future formula. I swear to God, I fixed this slide 5 times and I still haven't fixed it there. There's some links here, but this entire formula is on a really good website. Well, I shouldn't say really good, a fine website called The Muse. It does some job advice. There's some really good kind of blog posts about hiring. So there's a link there that you can give it an answer, give it a try for yourself. And there's some videos as well of people doing this. And like I said, just keep practicing it in front of the mirror. I think especially if you know you're going to be having an interview potentially for a summer or spring job, practice it, practice it, practice it. And it doesn't have to just be your present, past, future formula. It can be answers to all those questions, like I was saying. If you go on the Muse or certainly on your career services websites, you're going to see examples of interviewing, best practices for interviewing. All of this is not to say you need to get prepped for an interview, but how are you going to knock it out of the park when you get to that interview? How are you going to really communicate what value you bring? What makes you a unique employee in the eyes of a employer? What is your unique selling proposition? And that's all in your brand, as we've been talking about. I highly recommend practicing in front of the mirror, certainly video.
I practice in front of the mirror all the time.
It's good. I mean, it's really, really good.
And for our students who might come from countries where, or parts of this country where English is not your first language, spiel that's your 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
It could be 35 seconds, it could be 45 seconds, but whatever your pitch is.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't have to be, don't hold yourself to 30 seconds. What I don't want you to do ever, is you go into your interview and the first question is some kind of softball question about like, so what brings you here? Why do you want this job? Tell me a little bit about yourself. And you spend 7 minutes on that question. That's 100% failure. You might only have a half hour with that individual for your interview. You might even have less. And that person might have 5-10 questions to get through. And if you spend all your time not answering that question succinctly, you blew it. So practice it. It should be short though. 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 3. If someone has a follow-up, the person interviewing has follow-up questions, great. That's the whole point of an interview. Excuse me. Sorry about that. All right. So just some kind of last takeaways here. The job interview is not just about you. I mean, of course it is. Like, you want to know, is this a place I want to work? And for many of you kind of looking at the pandemic and potentially coming away from the university with student loans and that need to be repaid, of course you need a job and you want a job. My point is this: don't forget, it's also about the employer. They're trying to figure out, how do you fit in the team? Do your skills and expertise and experience line up with what they're seeking in a candidate? Were you kind of that like effervescent person like Eddie? And is Eddie the right fit for the team? What value add do you bring? So do that homework, look at those mission statements, see some of the areas that are exciting, closely read those position descriptions. I cannot underscore that enough. And I think if you guys have been talking about resumes, maybe that's come up, but I tell people, friends, family, clients who I've worked with on resumes, print off those job postings and sit down. And one of the things I do as someone who, I don't know every single industry. I know my industry, marketing and communication, really well. I go through and I highlight words that I see repeated. It's the same kind of, thing we're taught in college to do close reading, but let's use robotics because we've used it like 5 times. If development of robotics is mentioned 15 times, you better be mentioning that in your questions, better be on your resume in some form. Or if it's not, you might need to think about what transferable skill you're mentioning in your resume that then you're mentioning in your interview. So just do that homework and be prepared to answer those questions. That's a really important part of that future statement. And just in interviewing and resume writing. And remember this, we've talked about it a couple times as well. Your personal brand will change. I didn't really mention this. I mentioned how I kind of fell into resume writing and career development, but what I didn't mention is I fell into fundraising. I ultimately graduated with a strategic communications degree, and I ended up realizing I really liked working in fundraising, which to me felt icky and disgusting. And I've actually come to really love working in the area of philanthropy. And so certainly my career narrative has changed, my personal brand has changed. And so I have to constantly keep practicing it and refining it. And also thinking about, is this the right move for me? And where do I want to go to next? So.
Awesome.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I have a tickle in my throat. Resources for you, John. You'll have all this stuff. I can send you a PDF of all
That
this.
would be awesome.
And of course, let me just make one more pitch. Go check out your career services websites. Go check out all of them. Check out what's at CALS, what's at College of Engineering. You can go look at LNS's. It's called Success Works. Go look at these websites. They have great information. They are available for you now, certainly as a student, but even as someone who's graduated, like sometimes I go back in and look at things like different verbs, action verbs for websites or power verbs. These are things that are often on university websites. Bookmark them, keep them, and then keep practicing your personal brand pitches and your answers to these present, past, future formulas.
And for the students, like you said, Megan, we'll put all these on as separate links in Canvas, and then some of the career services resources will also be linked in the resumes module. So it's a great, and including that LNS, what's it called again? Success Works?
Yeah, their career services unit is called Success Works.
Yeah, I think
a lot of this,
we're going to use a short video from them as part of this class, actually. Not part of this module, but part of this class.
yeah, I mean, they're, I think I highly respect my career services colleagues across campus, and they really know a lot about what's going on, and they'll be good resources. And they often have great opportunities for students to either have resumes reviewed by alumni or other people on campus, or do mentoring and all these things that I think is just the practice runs for you guys. So it's it's really creating that runway for you to get ready to hit the ground running when you graduate, whether it's industry you're going into or taking time off or going into school again. The other thing that's in here is I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, so you can connect with me. I often do have students who ask me to do resume reviews, but unfortunately, I'm just not able to commit to that right now, just given everything that's going on. But go see your career services people. But connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm always happy to connect with the students, and sometimes I try to post information on LinkedIn that's helpful to just things that are happening in career areas.
So Megan, I always appreciate you doing this. I'm hoping for the students that between our resume lecture, all those resources, Don Stanley he talked a lot about content creation and getting yourself out there with writing web articles and things. And then they have to do the LinkedIn update or social media makeover. But I really appreciate how you've put a nice wrap on this. And you've also brought the personal stories in with Eddie, Lyle, and Richard. Yeah. So I think that personal practicing things is really an awesome wrap. And every time I hear you speak, I do go back and I think for myself, if I'm ever asked that question, the present, past, future framework. So thank you. Any parting words before we say goodbye? No, I want to wish the student, I mean, first of all, I think the students will find once they get out onto whatever's next after graduation, that this class will have proved to be really helpful. And I just feel as someone who has changed your careers, gone through a great recession and a pandemic, and done a number of different things, and is in a career I never really thought I would go into, that it has been so wild, and I'm so thankful for the support I've had. But I feel like if I had had a class like this, I probably would have been a lot better equipped. And so I just think that these are really valuable resources, and don't forget to use them when you're on campus. Yeah. And when you graduate, some of the stuff is still available. So bookmark it and keep it, because it's incredibly helpful as you go into your post-college life. And thank you for being part of it, Megan, because it wouldn't be possible without you and speakers like you. So I'm going to hit stop recording, and we'll see everybody soon.